With the flow. Flowstream.com.
Welcome back. It's the Will and Willie Show pre-election special broadcast, brought to you by the world-famous Buena Vista Cafe, the original home of the Irish coffee. And Mr. Mayor, I see you have one in front of you right now. And we're at Hyde and Beach Streets by the San Francisco Bay with Willie Brown and Will Durst, and I'm Paul Wells, and it's great to be back on Green 960 and also
now
to do another
don't
podcast.
Make the mayor sound like he's the lush. You have a little Irish coffee in front of you as well.
I do, and it'll become obvious as soon as I hold it up for anybody who's watching it on the internet.
I'm waiting till after the show because I'm a professional.
Well, you know what's interesting about Irish coffee? You know, a hot drink is very difficult to manage. I've always wondered why they didn't have handles. They didn't serve them in things with handles.
Because that's 6 ounces and that's 8.
What difference does it make? It shouldn't.
Because that's the right percentage of gas versus
okay,
oxygen.
but you would still
for the carburetor.
You would still consume it in the same fashion. Here you have to struggle with the heat.
Well, that's
also,
isn't it
lovely? Isn't it a lovely presentation?
It's a great photograph, but once the photograph is over, you got to drink something.
Oh, hold the stem. Can't you
I
hold
know
the
you
stem?
hold. Yeah, you can hold the stem, provided you haven't had too much to drink before.
Well, I'll drink to that.
That's self-regulating.
We have a guest with us to start off this segment.
Who?
Public Defender Jeff Adachi,
Remember,
who
we're in
is
the
running
county
for
jail.
re-election, and
I wanna
also
thank him
the
for that,
proponent of Proposition B. And here's a bit of campaign literature. On the top it says, "This isn't anti-labor. This is just an effort to get some intelligence into the pension system because we public officials have screwed up." And that's quoting in Matthias Ross, Willie Brown.
I said that.
You said that. And it's in print.
I never deny anything attributed to me.
I can neither
Because
deny
the chances are I did say it.
nor confirm.
Well, what happens if this passes? Are we going to see riots like we saw in France?
No. This is a modest measure. All it does, it requires all city employees, including elected officials, to pay into their pensions. Right now, 11,000 city employees don't pay anything into their pensions. So this is about fairness.
Out of how many?
Out of 26,000.
So 15,000 do pay into their pension.
Right.
And 11,000 don't. Why
That's right.
were they given a
Because
pension?
we have individual labor contracts throughout the city. And so what's happening now is that we're spending almost $1 billion in city resources on pensions and health care for city employees. And it's breaking the backs of our city. You know, we had no summer school this year. It was the first year it canceled summer school. Our parks budgets have been slashed. All of the programs that have made this community what it is are being lost. We have $70 parking tickets out on the street now.
I'm hip.
And we still don't have
Did you feed
enough
your
money.
meter well?
$3 an hour for the
No,
meter.
downtown it's $18 of the smart meters.
And this is a
Expensive
problem
meters.
we
In a
have
recession.
on the state level, on
Right.
the national level,
Because
post office.
Right, because these pension costs are expanding by
Right.
about $50 to $100 million a year. Because every time the pension fund goes down, the taxpayers have to fill it up, and that's the thing that's causing and crowding out all these basic services.
And later we want to get into raising 5 cents per alcoholic drink, which is affecting people like right here
Right
at
here at the Buena Vista Cafe.
Mayor, what do you think about Prop B?
Well, it was some months ago when, in conversations with Jeffrey, I mentioned to him that I had served on CalPERS pension board, and that before that I never paid any attention to pensions at all, because they were something like would occur in somebody else's lifetime, not my
Way
own.
down the line, yeah.
And so in conversations with my employees, public employees that I had some jurisdiction over, if I could satisfy their appetite for the moment by promising a more lucrative pension at the end of the rainbow, I did that. But what I did not do is that I didn't intelligently and effectively fund that promise. over the years, obviously, those unfunded promises have begun to create major problems for the delivery system. Suddenly, the unfunded promises are threatening to keep us from being able to pay this public safety debt, to pay the ongoing debts associated with current day living. So we need to go back and revisit the pension system. Unlike my insurance policy that has an annuity for me, when the insurance company sat down and they negotiated that with me, they literally walked through what their exposure would be for the next 40 years, what my required payment would be, and what my guarantee would be on the side of what happens when the annuity is to be paid. We didn't do that with the pension system at all.
The stock market was rising 10% every year, and all you had to do was invest in Enron or World
401k, yeah, everything was rolling.
You could see the pension funds, constantly
Real estate,
expand.
everything, yes.
There is, however, I must tell you, there is a legitimate argument that can be made that what Adachi is doing and what I support ought to be within the framework of the collective bargaining process. The trouble with that argument is people like the old Willie Brown were participating. And I had a very personal interest in getting elected and re-elected. So my objectivity on the issue was dampened by the potential for endorsement. And that made it impossible for the public to have a real person at the bargaining table who didn't have something to lose if they didn't yield. And so what...
And no one's willing to put that in the collective bargaining agreement, the fact that it's going to cost them money. Nobody wants that.
No.
And one thing that has changed is that when these pension plans were put in place, city employees made much less than private sector employees. Today in San Francisco, the average city employee, get this, makes $93,000 a year. The average private sector employee earns $46,000 a year, and that's not even counting benefits. The Chronicle reported one police officer made $516,000 last year. That's more than the President of the United States. And on top of that, he retired at 56, and he got a $240,000 pension for the rest of his life. That's an $8 million payout.
I have a lot of friends who work for city government, worked for state of California. My own brother was a professor of San Jose State, and he decided not to wait a few extra years to retire at full pay. He just figured, well, I've saved up enough, half is good enough for me. But it's a remarkable thing because I don't get that.
Let me tell you something. I made that possible. I'm the guy who carried the bill to have a reduction in the age level for persons in the educational delivery system. I participated in helping doing the same thing for those in public safety.